Elatorius Victorialus Erastus Necessitas Horarius Despondeo Spiritus Obdomio Patriarcha Gladiator.
They must be punished! Charge!
The Roman Empire is still one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen. Imperium sine fine, the empire without end. Stretching from Hadrian's Wall in England to the Nile Valley in Egypt, the empire completely surrounded the Mediterranean, Mare Nostrum, or sea. It was an empire built on war, as they successfully conquered every nation who stood against them, from unifying Italy to the defeat of Carthage and Macedonia. While originally being a republic, the government would change into a dictatorship when Julius Caesar took the power by force. After his assassination, his adopted son Octavius became the ruler, and the era of the Roman Empire started. The empire prospered for hundreds of years until internal conflicts and incompetent rulers led to the empire collapsing on its own weight. Diocletian decided that governing this massive empire was impossible, which led to the split of the empire into the Western and the Eastern Roman Empire. The Eastern would later become the Byzantine Empire. The Western Empire was the first to fall, and with enemies surrounding them, the Byzantine Empire suffered defeat after defeat until the only provinces left was their capital and southern Greece. That is where our story begins. In a final stand against the Ottomans, the last Romans fought a desperate defensive war, joined only by small nations bordering the Turks. Roma Invicta. The First Italian War was the result of a Byzantine invasion of southern Italy. The ruler of Byzantium saw Italy as the rightful claim and that any foreign countries occupying it was the real aggressors. Byzantium was joined in the war by their allies France and Burgundy, while Spain called their allies the Commonwealth and the Papal State. Spain, who was too confident in their fleet power, did not anticipate that Byzantium had solely focused on building galleys specialized in fighting in inland seas. The Byzantine army could get transported before the Spanish fleet even reached the Italian seas, and with only a small garrison army in Italy, the battles there were swift. With Italy already lost to the invading force, Spain sent most of their forces to their northern borders to deal with France. A Spanish fort located in the mountains had held most of the French army from entering Spain, and this is where the biggest battle of the war was fought. After months of sieging, France decided that the time had come and attacked the fort. They suffered heavy losses as they tried to breach the walls, and the battle resulted in another stalemate. This in turn gave time for the Spanish army to arrive, and most of the French troops were killed in the mountains, which gave Spain free access into French lands. Meanwhile, the Spanish fleet had reached the Byzantine galleys and a naval battle commenced. Most of what was left of the Commonwealth got occupied by Bohemian forces as the Commonwealth Cossacks attacked and plundered the northern parts of the Byzantine kingdom. France quickly accepted a white peace with Spain and formally left the war. But with most of Italy occupied, Spain could do nothing as their fleets were lost to the massive galley force and their ports were blockaded. France refused access to their forces, and a peace treaty was struck, giving most of southern Italy to Byzantium. Only a month after the war with Spain, the Mamluks saw a chance to conquer Anatolia from the Orthodox heathens, and they invaded Byzantine lands shortly after that. France was still recovering from the last war and refused the call for defense. So did Burgundy, who was involved in a war in the Holy Roman Empire. The only ally who honored the call was Russia, which meant that the situation got a lot more dire than it should have been. The Netherlands, who had declared their independence, had a loose alliance with the Mamluks and decided to help them as they were concerned about the Byzantine expansion. They sent most of their army in a fleet to attack Italy, while the Mamluks blockaded the passage from Constantinople and occupied Anatolia. The Byzantine armies stationed in Italy was sent south into Tunis, while the Balkan armies protected the capital until the Russians could march down to help them retake Anatolia. Initially, the Byzantine armies were successful in the invasion of Tunis. Italy was defended by high-level forts to slow down the armies of the Netherlands. Russian forces had reached the Crimean region and could move into Anatolia. The Byzantine fleet was sent to attack the naval blockade of their capital, while the Mamluks sent reinforcements to Tunis. A massive battle started in eastern Anatolia as most of the Russian and Mamlukian armies clashed there. The naval blockade of Constantinople was cleared, and Byzantine forces could enter Anatolia to help the Russian armies. Meanwhile, the Netherlands sent their army into Tunis, where they attacked the weakened Byzantine armies stationed there. In Tunis, the last Byzantine forces were defeated, and it all came down to the battle in the East Anatolia. Everything was thrown there from both participants of the war, and the losses were tremendous for both sides. A naval blockade was set up on the Mamlukian capital, as most of the enemy's navies were sunk or holed up in ports for repairs. Far from their homeland, the Russians made their stand. It was surrender or die, and they would never comply, as they would rather die. Just as the Russian armies looked defeated and all hope was lost, the Byzantine cavalry arrived and attacked the Mamluks in their flanks. What could have been a defeat for Byzantium turned into a Pyrrhic victory. A strong bond lasting for centuries was forged between Byzantium and Russia after this battle, and a few weeks later the Mamluks surrendered, as most of their armies were defeated or routed. The war ended with massive casualties on both sides, and it would take long to recover. As Rome does not forget and Rome does not forgive, an invasion was launched on the French traitors. Their cowardly behavior when the Mamluks invaded Rome was not forgotten, and the French soil was by right Roman, or at least that was the common thought. France, who had turned their eyes west, had most of their armies positioned in the New World, and an attack would be swift and devastating. The Scandinavian Empire did, however, listen to the French call to arms, but only on paper. They had little interest in fighting another country's war and held back their troops for most of the duration of the war. The Romans' new fleet, built for naval combat in open seas, was sent north to interrupt any French transports that could be sent from the New World. This gave the Romans numerical advantages, and the French were outnumbered 10-1. The first month of the invasion was devastating for France, as Roman troops laid waste as they pushed through the French defenses with ease. As planned, the French reinforcement from the New World was intercepted by the Roman fleet, and a massive naval battle commenced. With both sides controlling many carracks, the outcome wasn't obvious, but the Roman trade ships had an advantage over the French transport ships as they could carry more cannons. The French troops stationed in France tried to desperately stop the Roman advance with little to no luck, and an army was sent north to siege the French capital, as any reinforcements for the southern battles didn't seem necessary. The French army suffered a crushing defeat and had to pull back their forces for a final defense to the advancing Roman legions. They did, however, not come far, as the Romans maneuvered the lands with haste and quickly caught up with the last French troops and completely eradicated them. Meanwhile, the naval battle went in Romans' favor, and most of the French armies drowned in the Atlantic. This would be the most crushing defeat a country had ever witnessed, as France was now completely under control of Rome's might. By removing one of their last threatening opposing countries in Europe, the final conquests to reform the empire would be an easy task. Thanks for waiting for me. I know that it takes a long time between these time lapses and that most of you are here to see them. Quality does, however, take a bit of time, and with YouTube flooding with time lapses, I feel that it's fun if not all of them are the same. My next time lapse will most likely be in a modded EU4 or Stellaris, since I'm now a bit spent on vanilla EU4 and it's fun to mix it up a bit. I also have some playthroughs in mind, as I couldn't get my recording to work in Fallout 2. One of them would be in any of the Paradox games, but I've also had this urge to play some real strategy games lately, like Warcraft 3, Starcraft, or any new RTS games I find interesting. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did creating it. As always, if you liked the video, leave a like, as it helps the channel grow. And if you didn't, I'm sorry I wasted your time. Fullbordad, out.